Hit it, hit it.
Hi, I'm Miley Bird, and I'm going to teach you how to make the La Papillon cowl. La Papillon is French for butterfly. This beautiful cowl is just wonderful. It uses a long color changing acrylic yarn by Red Heart called Unforgettable, and it works in two different directions. You will actually begin with the base center foundation row, and you'll work up this direction with some stitches, and then you'll go back and you'll start working into the bottom side of your foundation row and work the opposite direction. Here, look down here and let me show you a little bit more closely. As we look at this cowl, you can see that the direction of the shells go out from the center section of bobbles. That is created by working a foundation chain and then beginning to work single crochets and bobbles along the foundation chain row. Once those are completed, you work up one direction in shells to the height that you need it to be, and then you'll finish off. You come back and you'll work the second direction in shells, working along the bottom edge of the foundation row. It's really not that hard. It's a great way to get a subtly different look to a cowl that is reversible somewhat, and it's fun. Like I said, for this particular cowl, we are going to use Red Heart Boutique Unforgettable yarn, which comes in many different colorways. They have very subtle gradient color changes, as these two show, or they have ones like this particular one where it has the pinks and the purples and a little bit of this salmon color, and it goes also on, and they have pastels, which are really fun. For this project, you'll need one ball of Unforgettable. You'll need a size J or 10 or 5mm crochet hook. You will need a tapestry needle, and I like to use stitch markers. So if you could get split ring stitch markers and use those to help you know when the beginning and the end of your row are, that's what you need for this project. Gather your supplies. You can find the pattern at redheart.com. Again, it's called the La Papillon cowl, designed by Michelle Max. Join me back here and let's get started. For this cowl, you need to begin with the chain 92. Now for demonstration purposes, I'm not going to chain 92, I'm just going to chain 12, but you will get the gist of what you're supposed to be doing. I'm going to begin by placing a slip knot onto my hook. If you need instructions on how to do a slip knot or a chain, you can find videos for that right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. I've put a slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 12. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Once I have 12 here, I'm going to begin to work in my pattern, which says to single crochet in the second chain from hook and in each chain across, and then turn. So I have one chain, two chains, so I never count the one on my hook. So I'm going to single crochet in my second chain from hook. So I'm going to go right into the chain. Now you can decide whether you want to go into the top loop of the chain or the top loop and the bottom, what I call the butt of the stitch, and work together. It's totally up to you. It's not going to make much of a difference. Okay, so there's one, and I'm going to do that in each chain all the way to the end. I'm going to keep moving along and pulling my yarn up as I'm working across. If you need help with the single crochet, once again, there are videos on single crochet right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel, also over at redheart.com. Going all the way along this row, and I'm trying to go somewhat slow so you can see what's going on. I'm using one of the lighter shades of the Red Heart Unforgettable yarn right now, so that way you can see these stitches here at the beginning. But as I continue on, you're going to see that I've made up samples in the other shades, or in the example cowl shade. So it will be lovely for you to look at those beautiful pink colors. So here I am at the very end. I've single crocheted all the way across. across. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 single crochets. Once you have done your chain 92 and single crocheted all the way across, you will have 91 single crochets. After I've done that, it says in the instructions that I need to turn, and then I need to chain 1. Now I need to single crochet in the first single crochet. Now knowing that this first chain 1 is not going to count as a stitch, I'm going to place my single crochet right there, and the very last single crochet I completed will be my very first single crochet. So I'm going to put my first single crochet right there, and this is where my stitch markers come into play. I'm going to grab my stitch marker, and I'm going to put the marker at the top of that stitch I just completed. So you see the V? I just slipped it right through that. What that's going to do, it's going to let me know that that is the last stitch of my row when I'm coming back. After I've completed the first single crochet, the instructions tell me to do a bobble into the next single crochet. Now the bobble stitch in the instructions, it tells you exactly what to do. So we're going to just work it right here so that way you can see. What we need to do for this bobble stitch is we're going to yarn over our hook, and we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, which is the next single crochet. Going to yarn over our hook and pull up a loop. Now it says we're going to yarn over our hook, insert our hook into the same stitch, yarn over our hook, pull up a loop. We're going to do that 4 times. So that's once that we've done the repeat. There's the yarn over our hook, go into the stitch, yarn over our hook, pull up a loop. That's 2. Yarn over our hook, go into the stitch, yarn over our hook, pull up a loop. That's 3. Yarn over our hook, go into the stitch, yarn over our hook, pull up a loop. That's 4. Okay, so we have done this 4 times, 4 yarn overs, and we're going to draw through all 11 loops on my hook. So I'm going to make sure I have 11 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm going to yarn over and draw through all of them all at the same time. You see that? That creates my bobble. All right. The next set of the instructions say we're going to single crochet in the next single. And what you're going to see here, you guys, once I do the single crochet, it's going to make that bobble pop out. Okay. Carry on with these instructions. It says you're going to alternate the bobble and the single crochet across the row. So in this next one, I'm going to put a bobble, then I'm going to put a single, bobble, single, bobble. So here we are. We're going to yarn over our hook, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over our hook, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over our hook, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over our hook, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over our hook, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 loops. So one thing that as I was doing that and saying it out loud to you guys, I know that I'm going to yarn over my hook, insert my hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop a total of 5 times, okay? So I've done that, yarn over, draw through all my loops on hook, that finishes off the bobble. I come to my next single crochet, insert my hook, and I work my single crochet, okay? One more time, I just want you guys to be able to get this. Yarn over, insert my hook into my stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. So there's 1. Yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. There's 2. Yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. There's 3. Yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. There's 4. Yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. There's 5. So I've done 5, and we have 11 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You do not have to count your loops every time. I'm just making sure that you guys can see I do have 11 loops, and I've done 5 repeats of that partial to get that bobble. I go into the next stitch, do a single crochet, and I'm right here at the end. Might as well go ahead and finish these up. So let's do this. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up. There's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5, yarn over, draw through all of them, do a single in the next one. If you notice, I'm keeping track, or I'm holding my chain stitches down here with my left hand to try and make sure that they don't get twisted and turn on me. Yarn over, go into the next, yarn over, pull up. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, There's 4, and there's 5. Yarn over, draw through all of them. I'm at the end of my row here, so I'm going to finish off with a single crochet at the very end, and I'm completed. So your first row, once you have done this all across your 91 stitches, you will have a total of 45 bobbles and 46 single crochets. Once you've completed that, you're going to turn your work. You're going to chain 1. Now we know that chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so we know that we're going to mark our next stitch. You ready? So we've turned our work, we've chained 1, and we're going to single crochet in the top of all of these stitches. So I single crochet, I grab my second stitch marker, I'm going to put it into the top of that single crochet I just finished, just so that way I know that that's the end of my row when I come back. And then I carry on, and I just put my single crochets in the tops of all of these. And you'll see that even though we did all of those loops for that bobble, there's still only one V stitch, or one top of the stitch there represented with the V. So I go in, yarn over, and just work my single crochet. And I do that all along the row. Okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to complete your foundation row. I want you to complete row 1 and row 2 of the, foundation row, row 1 and row 2 of the cowl. Join me back here and I will show you how to move on to row 3, which is the shells, okay? Thanks. Okay, so you have completed the foundation row, the bobbles, and 1 row of single crochet. This is what my little swatch looks like with the 12 stitches. I'm going to pull in what yours most likely resembles right here. So yours is rather long because you had a beginning chain of 92. So now you have a total of 45 bobbles and 45 single crochets, and then you've done a total of 91 single crochets on top of that, right? Great. I have changed colors just for the purpose of this demonstration so that way you guys could better see the stitches I'm about to complete, but you will not, let me repeat, you will not change colors on your cowl. You will continue on with the same color that you have been working along this whole way. I am getting ready to begin row 3, and to do that I'm going to take my little marker out of my stitch. Do you guys ever do that? I put a stitch marker into my open loop so that way my loop doesn't go anywhere when I put it on hold. It's really, really handy. So to finish off row 2, I needed to go ahead and I need to turn my work, right? That's the only part where I am right now. So I've turned my work. I'm ready to begin row 3 just with all of you. So row 3 starts off with a chain 1. So we're going to chain 1, and it says single crochet in the first single crochet. So my first single crochet is right here. Okay, it's the very last one I completed. So I'm going to put my hook in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. And that's my first single crochet, and that's the end of my row. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stick my marker in the top of that single crochet so that way I know that's the end of my row. Now, the next set of the instructions say to skip the next 2 single crochets. So I'm going to skip this one and skip this one. And I'm going to put a shell into the next stitch. So skip, skip, I'm going to put a shell right there. Now you might have done a shell in the past that you're used to doing, and it could be completely different from the shell that Michelle Max wants you to use. So make sure you look at your instructions and find out what the designer wants you to do as far as a shell, because it could be a little bit different than what you're used to doing. For this pattern, Michelle wants us to do 5 double crochets into that stitch that we indicated. So we've skipped 2 singles, we're into the 3rd, and I'm going to do 5 double crochets. So I've yarned over my hook. Let me do this. I've yarned over my hook, go into the stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. And I'm going to do that 5 times. If you need more instructions on how to do the double crochet, you can find a double crochet video right here in the Beginner Basics videos on Marley Bird's YouTube channel or over at redheart.com. So I have completed 4 doubles. I'm going to do 1 more to have 5 double crochets completed, and that gives me my first shell. Now, the instructions read to skip the next 2 single crochets. So I'm going to skip that one, and I'm going to put a single crochet in the next one. So I'm going to go to the 3rd one, and I'm going to put just a basic single crochet. Now it says repeat from the asterisk. Now the asterisk began up here when it said to skip 2 singles, so skip, skip, and put a shell in the next. So we're going to do the shell one more time. Once again, you yarn over your hook, go into the stitch, yarn over your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. So that's 1 double crochet, and we want to put 5 of them in here. Go ahead and complete your 5 double crochet to create your second shell stitch. And then you're going to carry on working down all 91 stitches of this particular row, alternating the single crochet and the shell all along, okay? So once you've done that, you're going to have these shells all along. The next one we have single shell, single shell. Join me back here and I'll show you how to do row 4, okay? Welcome back. All right, so you have finished row 3 and you're ready to move on to row 4, which is stacking more shells on top of the shells we've already completed. So far, yours looks a little bit like mine right now. If I'm looking at the back side of my row 3, where I've just completed a shell, I'm getting ready to move on to go to row 4, and I have changed colors once again to make it easier for you to see the contrast of what I'm getting ready to do. I want to remind you that you will not be changing colors for yours. You will be sticking with your same color you've been using this whole time. So here we are. So I'm at the end of row 3. I'm going to turn my work and I'm looking at the other side. Woohoo, there's my baubles. You can see them a little bit better now. Now I'm going to begin with chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And the instructions indicate that this counts as the first double crochet here and throughout. So I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to stick my marker into the 3rd chain of this turning chain. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to stick my marker right there. So I just stuck it right in there because that lets me know that that's going to be the end of my row. I need to know that, so that makes it possible for me to know that I'm going to have nice and straight edges, okay? So I've done that, and I'm going to do 2 double crochets in the first single crochet. So I'm going to yarn over my hook. This is my first single crochet. I'm going to go into it, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. So that's 1. I'm going to do that one more time. And there's 2. So I have 3 double crochets there because remember, this chain 3 counts as a double crochet. All right? So I've done the 2, and now I have my asterisk, and it says single crochet in the center double crochet of the next shell. So I know that my shells had 5 doubles. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the center one is going to be my 3rd. So I want to put a single crochet in the center of my 5 doubles, which was my shell. And then I'm going to put a shell in the next single crochet. So I yarn over my hook, I skip the remaining double crochets from that shell before, come all the way over here where that single crochet is from the row below, and I'm going to put a shell stitch there. Now remember, a shell for this pattern is a combination of 5 double crochets all into one stitch. So there's 3, here's 4, and then here is 5, okay? Then you carry on, and it says to repeat from the asterisk. So we're going to put a single crochet into the middle of this shells from the row below. So it's in the 3rd double. I'm going to put a single crochet right there. And then I go on, and down here in this single crochet, I do my 5 doubles again. Remember, I'm skipping all those other stitches. The reason this comes out so nice, even though I'm skipping stitches, is because as this shell stitch fans out, really nice and lovely. Let me finish this and I'll put it down so you can see a little bit better. It actually fills in the space of the stitches that I'm skipping. So if I extend that up and I set this down, you can see that even though I've skipped these stitches right here and put my shell right down here, the fanning of this shell and the length of my doubles fills in the space of the stitches I skipped. Does that make sense? So even though they're not technically joined, as they're laying flat, it looks like it's a solid piece of fabric. You're going to go ahead and do this down your entire row. When you get to the end, you're going to have a total of 14 shells and 15 single crochets. And on the edges, you're going to have 2 sets of 3 double crochets, okay? Do that, join me back here, and we'll begin row 5. All right, so you have finished row 4. We're getting ready to begin row 5, which is really easy because you've technically already done it, but we're going to start off a little bit different. So what we're going to do is you've finished row 4, and so we're going to turn our work, and we're going to begin row 5. Now, once again, I have changed colors just to make it easier for you to see what I'm doing, but you are going to continue on with the same color yarn you've been using the whole time. I'm going to begin with the chain 1. And I'm going to single crochet into my first double crochet right here. So I'm going to go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, and that's going to be my last stitch for the next row. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to mark it. Now, just like before, we're going to skip all of these stitches and come over here to where this single crochet is from the previous row, and we're going to put a shell into it. It's that easy, you guys. So it's just like row 4 in the fact that we're going to put single crochets in the tops of the shells and put shells in the single crochets from the previous row. The difference here is the way you begin and end. In row 4, we began with 3 double crochets, right? But in row 5, we're beginning with 1 single crochet. What that does is it offsets the shells from one another. It fills in the blanks. So we've just done 5 double crochets. I'm going to skip those and go to the top of the shell. So it's the middle stitch on the shell, the middle double crochet, put a single, and then I carry on. I skip all those, come all the way down here to the single, and I'm going to do 5 doubles. It's that easy. Pretty simple, right? So far we have learned how to do the chain stitch, we've learned the single crochet, we've learned the bobble, we've learned the shell, and then just how to start the shell on each row so that it fills in the valleys between the shells, right? You'd carry on this way down the entire row. When you get to the end, make sure that you finish off with the single crochet in the top of that chain 3 at the very end over here. So if I were to scooch this down, come all the way down here, this chain 3 right there, that's going to be the end of my row. And you're going to know because you've marked that, right? Once you've done that, it's time to move on and begin the other half of the cowl. So what happens here is we've created this nice foundation row and worked up our cowl this way, but now it's time for us to start working stitches down here on the bottom of the foundation row and begin to work this direction. So go ahead, finish row 5 and join me back here and I'll get you started on the next half of the cowl. All right, you have completed 1/2 of your Papillon cowl and it's time to complete the second side. So it is really simple to do this. It's just a little bit different construction, but join me down here. I'm going to show you how to get started. All right, so down here you can see I have the wrong side of the fabric facing me, and I know it's the wrong side because the bobbles that I created are right there, and that's the right side of the fabric. So I have those facing the table. I have the shells that I've completed facing down because I'm going to be working into the foundation row right there, working my way up. Now, if you remember, when I worked on this particular little swatch and I started with my foundation row, I worked into the back loop and the butt of the stitch, which left this front loop open along my foundation row chains, right? That front loop is what I'm actually going to be working through on this pink swatch. Okay, so if I set this aside, you can see here, if I look at the bottom of this, here are my front loops. Can you see? It's like right there. There's a front loop, and there's a front loop right there. Okay, I'm going to be working into those front loops to create this next series of stitches. Now to do that, the instructions say they want me to begin with a single crochet. They want me to join with a single crochet. Now for me, when I join with a single crochet, what I want to do is I want to put a slip knot onto my hook. I'm going to put my hook into the stitch where I want to begin. So for me, I'm going to say that's right there. I'm just going to the bottom of a foundation chain, and I'm going to yarn over a hook and draw up a loop. So I have 2 loops on my hook. See how that looks like a normal single crochet? And I yarn over and draw through 2. Some people like to call that a standing single crochet, and that's perfectly fine too, but that's joining with the single crochet. Now, once you've joined with a single crochet, what you need to do is you're going to skip the next 2 foundation chains. So we're going to skip 1, we're going to skip 2, and go into third one. We're going to put a shell. So we've been doing this all along. We know what a shell is. We're going to yarn over our hook, go into that chain, the loop that's available to us. It's a little fiddly, but you can get it. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, just like the shells you've been doing all along. And we're going to do that right there into that chain, okay? All we're doing, you guys, is we're building this side of the cowl exactly like the side that we just completed, but now we're working into the bottom half of the foundation chain, which is different than some of you might have ever done before. So we've created our shell. We're going to skip two chains again. So we're skip 1, skip 2, and in the third one we're going to put a single crochet. So I'm going to put my hook into that chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. What do you think we do next, huh? By now you probably know. We're going to skip 2. We're going to put a shell into the third. So I'm going to go in there. I'm going to yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, and complete my double crochets. So I'm going to make sure I have 5 of them, just like I did on the other side. Oops. Got a little ahead of myself there. 4. Is that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. And then I skip 2, 1, 2, go into the next. If you're having a hard time seeing this on the video, really look at your work in hand. It will help you find the chains that you need to be working into. You'll carry on like this down the entire row, and what you've ended up with here is a series of shells. So if I were to flip this, let's use our imagination. We have one side of shells that are built up, our nice baubles, and we'll have this side built up of shells as well. So shells, baubles, and then we'll have shells. I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to bring in the finished sample so you can take a look at what I'm talking about. So this is the finished cowl. We have our nice set of shells right here, our row of baubles, and then this is our opposite side of shells. So as long as you create the shell rows, the same number on both sides, you'll have a very symmetrical cowl. Go ahead and finish up your cowl. You're going to build the second side just like you built the first. So you're going to alternate those 2 rows where you begin with a double or 3 double crochets, or begin with 1 single crochet, and get going. Once you finish out both sides, come back over here. I'm going to show you how to seam up your cowl, okay? Alrighty, so you have your completed cowl, but now it's time to seam it up to make it an actual cowl. Right now it looks like a really short scarf, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use a tapestry needle and the yarn you've been using this whole time, and we are going to do a simple mattress stitch to seam up the cowl to make it as invisible as possible. So join me down here and I'll show you how to get started. As we look at the sample cowl, you can see right here is my seam. What I've tried to do is I have matched up my rows as well as possible. So that way, as I seamed it up, it looks seamless, okay? When this is actually on me, you can't tell there's a seam there at all, okay? It's a little bit more visible in this just because of the color changes, because each row, they don't coincide with one another, but honestly, you're not gonna notice it, I promise. I'm going to put this out of the way and I'm going to bring in the little swatch we've been working with the whole time. Now, of course, the other half of this swatch isn't completed yet, but that's okay. I can show you how to get started. I'm going to show you what to do in case you did not leave enough yarn to sew up. Say you got excited, you just finished up your cowl, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go watch Marley, it's time to move on. And I forgot to leave a long enough tail to use as my sewing thread. So this is what we're going to do. It's okay if you did not leave enough tail to use as your sewing thread. You would just weave this in so that it gets out of the way. Same thing if you did the same thing down here. See how short that is? That is unusable. First thing, word to the wise, always leave 4 to 6 inches of tail. Just makes it easier all the way around to weave in your tails. Otherwise, it's really hard to weave in something like that. So I'm going to use a tapestry needle for this cowl to weave in my ends. I'm using a metal tapestry needle from Susan Bates, which can be found at redheart.com. I prefer metal because it is so much easier to use with this yarn in particular than the plastic one, so I recommend going to get yourself a tapestry needle. You know what? That would be really good for me to show you. I'm going to show you how to thread the yarn on your tapestry needle. If you take it and you take your tapestry needle and put it really close to the yarn and pinch it right around the eye of the needle, pull your needle out and you can just wiggle that eye of the needle right over the yarn and pull that through, and you've threaded your tapestry needle. Super easy, no problem, you're good to go. Now what I want to do is I want to have the right side facing me. So I have the right side of the fabric facing me, and I want to join up the row. So I want to make sure that the end of this row is matched up to the beginning of the next row. And I'm going to start off with a figure 8. So I'm going from the wrong side to the right side, coming up on the right end. And then I'm going to the left one over here. I'm going from the wrong side to the right side, coming up, and I'm working into actual stitches, you guys. And as you're going along, you want to make sure that you're pulling up enough tail to work along the whole seam. So I don't want to just pull that through and only have about this much, because that's definitely not enough to work the whole seam of the cowl. So I'm going to make sure I'm pulling up enough to go the whole edge. I'm going to come back over here. This is what makes this a figure 8, and I'm going to go back in the same one I started off with and come up and pull in. Can you see that? Now I'm going to come back over here, and working through these double crochets, I'm going to go through the middle of the stitch here. I don't want to split yarn. I just want to go through the middle of the stitch and pull up a loop. Not pull up a loop, but pull up my needle. So I've done that. I come back over here. I come through the double crochet, and I come through the stitch just like that, and I pull up my needle. I come back over here, kind of going in where I came out, or maybe up a little bit. Anything works. Go in and back out. You can see I'm working along the edge, and I'm going up. So I'm going in between the stitch, making my seam invisible, and it's joining as I go. Up and out. As you go along, if you pull that to make sure everything's lining up nice and neat, it will make it super easy for you. Up and out. If this is not the kind of stitch you like to use to seam up your work, and you want to use like a whip stitch or anything else to seam your work together, because you're like, you know what, this is just too much fuss for me, Marley, I want to use something else, you absolutely can. Okay, so that's one of the wonderful things about crocheting, is you get to make it your own, right? So you would carry on this way, making sure as you pull up that you are lining up your rows and everything lines up perfectly. You would do that all the way along the edge of the cowl. At the very end, you just weave in your ends and you're good to go. You can see here, even with the different color yarn, it's rather invisible. You cannot but barely see the fiber or the different color of yarn I used there, but it's in there. So if you use the same color of yarn to weave in your ends or weave in your tails, to seam it up, that's what you're doing. You're not weaving in yet. If you use the same color of yarn to seam it up, you'll be good to go, all right? Okay, so you have completed this wonderful new cowl. You learned a new stitch. You're excited. It's a free pattern. It's great yarn. You have great instructions, and you're ready to go. You can find this pattern and more over at redheart.com. You can find more videos of mine right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Better yet, hit subscribe so that you're up to date whenever there's a new video released. I hope you enjoy your Papillon cowl, and you will go check out more patterns by Michelle Max. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.